you have more sympathy for the criminal than the victim, don't you?
Senator, I worked on behalf of victims of crime zealously as a prosecutor. As a judge, I listened carefully to understand impact on victims, and I have always take that into account.
Do you know Micah Smith?
Michael Smith, Senator?
Micah, M-I-C-H.
I don't believe I know a Micah Smith, Senator, no.
Okay. I bet the victims of Micah Smith remember Micah Smith if you don't.
Senator, there was a defendant I sentenced named Michael Smith.
Mr. Smith molested a 4-year-old girl, didn't he?
Senator, he was convicted after trial of unlawful sexual contact under Maine law.
That's a nice way of putting it.
That was the charge, Senator.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, Patriots, welcome back to the channel. Today, we have something that's really going to fire you up. I just watched a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing where Senator John Kennedy, one of the few voices of common sense left in Washington, grilled a Biden judicial nominee, Judge Campbell, about her record sentencing sex offenders and violent criminals. Folks, if you care about law and order, if you care about victims, if you care about the future of this country, you need to see this.
Mr. Smith molested a 9-year-old girl, didn't he?
Senator, again, he was convicted of unlawful sexual contact against 2 children. In that case, I did impose the sentence the state requested.
At oral argument, this is how Mr. Smith's conduct was described. Quote, you heard this testimony. All of the abuse is done in the same fashion. Smith would rub his fingers in a circular motion on the vagina of each child, and he did so repeatedly. Now, where I come from, we call that sexual abuse. You can pretty it up all you want to, Judge. This is what you said at Mr. Micah's sentencing. These are your words, not mine. What I can say, you said, is that this is a very tragic situation of a person who has a lot of good in him. A lot of good in him. Having done a very reprehensible thing to 2 young children causing extreme damage. Did I read that correctly?
Senator, in that case, I imposed the sentence the state requested.
Did I read that, your quotation correctly?
Senator, that I think is a portion of what I said at sentencing. My focus was on...
But the words I read, are they correct?
That's what was reported in the paper, Senator. I have not seen a transcript of the sentencing.
I bet the victims remember, Judge. You might have forgotten, just like you forgot his name. But I bet the victims remember. And then you handed down a sentence. You gave Mr. Smith 12 years, but you suspended 6 of them, didn't you?
Senator, that was at the recommendation of the state because
but it was your ruling. Did you? Is that an accurate statement of your ruling?
Senator, I accepted the state's recommendation that 6 years should be suspended so that Mr. Smith would be required to participate in sex offender treatment.
I appreciate the lengthy explanation, but I think it's a pretty simple question. That was your sentence, right?
Yes, I imposed the sentence the state requested in that case.
Are you familiar with the Bangor Daily News?
I am the Bangor Daily News, Senator.
Right. Did you read the article they wrote, quote, light sentences send a message that domestic violence does not matter, end quote. You remember that article?
I have read it, Senator. I believe it mischaracterizes a case that is
That article was about you, wasn't it?
My recollection, Senator, is that it described several different cases. The case that I worked on that was described there, the defendant in that case was acquitted by a jury of the most serious conduct, and that was not reflected in that article. And so
the newspaper got it wrong.
that was an op-ed that I believe misunderstood what happened, which is the jury acquitted the defendant of the most serious conduct that he was charged with. I was not the fact finder in that case, and so at sentencing, I was bound by the jury's verdict.
Let me ask you, I'm going to run out of time here. I wish I had more time for you, Ms. Campbell, but I've seen a lot of activist judges, and I'm not saying you're the most activist, but the list you're on, it sure doesn't take long to call the roll. Let me finish with this question. I'm going to end as I began, Judge Lopez. You have more sympathy for criminals than victims, don't you?
Senator, I have the support of the Maine Coalition to End Domestic Violence and the Maine Coalition Against Sexual Assault. I believe that support is a reflection of the work I did as a prosecutor, as well as the care I take with cases involving victims as a judge.
You're embarrassed to answer my question, aren't you?
Let me tell you exactly what happened. Senator Kennedy asked this judge a simple question. Does she have more sympathy for the criminal or the victim? And you could see her squirm. She danced around the answer, hid behind legal jargon, and tried to paint herself as a champion for victims. But the facts, Patriots, tell a very different story. First, Senator Kennedy brought up the case of Michael Smith, a man convicted of molesting 2 little girls. One was 4 years old, the other was 9. And Judge Campbell? She couldn't even remember the guy's name. Kennedy said it plain. I bet the victims remember. And isn't that the truth? These innocent children will never forget what happened to them. But Judge Campbell, sitting in her ivory tower, moves on like it was just another day at the office. And when Kennedy read back her own words from the sentencing, where she said this monster had a lot of good in him, I just about lost it. A lot of good in him? For a man who destroyed the innocence of 2 children? Patriots, where's the justice in that? Where's the moral clarity? She gave his predator 12 years, but suspended 6. Why? Because the state recommended it? Because of rehabilitation? Let me ask you, if it was your child, would you accept that excuse? I sure as hell wouldn't. We need judges who put the safety of our kids before the feelings of the criminal. I don't care what the state recommends. If you're a judge, you use your power to protect the innocent. Full stop. Then we get to the Bangor Daily News article. They called out light sentences for domestic violence. The judge claims the paper mischaracterized her ruling. But here's the thing. This isn't just about one case. This is a pattern we see from so many so-called progressive judges. Always looking for an excuse, always hiding behind procedure, always more concerned with the accused than the victim. And when Senator Kennedy called her an activist judge, let me tell you, he was right on the money. She's got the support of all these activist groups. But what about the support of the community? The parents? The families who have to live with the consequences of her rulings? Here's my honest opinion, folks. This is what's wrong with the justice system in America today. These liberal judges are appointed by politicians who care more about social engineering than justice. They talk about equity and rehabilitation, but forget about accountability and deterrence. They forget about the victims. And when confronted with their own words, their own record, they dodge, they deflect, and they refuse to take responsibility. If we want to restore law and order in this country, if we want to protect our children, we need judges who are tough on crime. We need judges who put victims first, not ones who are more worried about the potential of a child molester or the feelings of the criminal. Patriots, this is why elections matter. This is why we have to fight for our values, for our families, for our safety. Because if we don't, these activist judges will keep getting confirmed. They'll keep handing down light sentences. And it will be our kids, our communities that pay the price. So I want you to do 3 things. 1, share this video. Wake up your friends and family to what's happening. 2, call your senators. Tell them you've had enough of these soft-on-crime judges. 3, pray for this country, because we need God back in our courts, our schools, and our homes. This is Freedom Forge. Stand strong. Stand proud. Stand for justice. God bless you, and God bless America.